On today's show, the Dallas Mavericks roster is deeply flawed, or is it just fine? You answered it. I'm going to tell you what I think on today's Locked On Mavs. Stop it! Stop! The number one pick will go to the Dallas Mavericks. Cooper Flagg will fly in Dallas.
Dogs, all of us, all five.
You are Locked On Mavs, your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm gonna get a city like that.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks, your team every day. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member covering the Mavs for 10 years. Thanks for being it every day. Making Locked On Mavs your first listen all through the offseason, baby. We do not stop, can't stop, won't stop in the offseason. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. We'll talk about FanDuel a little bit later. And let's get into our topics today. We'll talk about some of the survey questions that you guys answered. We'll talk about how is D'Angelo Russell enough of a stopgap replacement for Kyrie? Should the Mavericks have done something else? There's a couple other options that were still kind of like on the board right now, and we can actually talk about those. And so we'll get into those options and what you guys said about it. We'll also talk about who should start with Kyrie, Cooper Flagg, Anthony Davis, and Lively. It's a real question, and we'll see what happens with it, but we know what you guys said, and I know what I'm going to say about it. And then let's start here, though. One of the questions we posted on this survey, and this is a survey we posed to all of you guys and to everybody that listens or just a Mavericks fan in general. We posted it on all kinds of different platforms and things like that. WFA posted it for us and all that. The question was just this. The Mavs' current roster is ... And then I put three options. Fine, dependent on health. Deeply flawed, needs work. Well built with clear advantages. And you go through all of them, and 71% of you said fine, dependent on health. And I think it's what I would have went with too. Fine, just dependent on health. They could be really good. They could be great potentially, but it just depends on health. Depends on what they can do, what this team can do. And but that's it. Like, all right, the health is the one thing that's holding them back. It's the biggest weakness. That was also the thing that was in the survey. Was what's the Mavs' biggest weakness, and it was health. Over and over and over again, that kept coming up. But I want to talk about not the 71% that said it's fine dependent on health. The 14% that said deeply flawed, needs work. Or the other 14% that said well-built, clear advantages. There's this obvious bell curve answering this question of in the middle, most people are saying the Mavs roster is fine. It's fine, depends on health. We'll see what happens. But then there's this, on either side of it, there's two groups of people that are on either side saying it's super deeply flawed or it's well built with clear advantages. And I think that the deeply flawed one is the most interesting one to me. Because if you think this roster is deeply flawed, then what are the flaws? What are the things that are going to come out and all of a sudden the Mavericks are going to look at this team and go, dang, we're screwed. Like we are screwed. So I want to talk about that for a little bit. Because I don't think it's deeply flawed. I think it is flawed in a way and could use some work here and there. But I think the deepest flaw is that Kyrie is not going to play. Because if you look through this roster and you look through what the Mavericks have, you got three straight centers: Dereck Lively, Daniel Gafford, Dwight Powell. Great. That's very, very strong. Feeling really good about those guys, especially two of them. Both of them. Wow. The forward combos: Anthony Davis, Cooper Flagg, PJ Washington, Najee Marshall. Not a lot of teams have multiple forward combos at all. And the Mavs have four of them that are really good. Anthony Davis can play center. Cooper Flagg can play 3 and 4, maybe some 2, maybe handle the ball as well. PJ Washington can play 3-4. Najee Marshall can play some 2, 3, and maybe some 4 in some certain lineups. Like forward combos, they've got those for sure. You got versatility with those guys, and that is a big plus for you. Obviously, the strength of the Mavericks team is in those 7 names that I just mentioned: Lively, Gafford, Dwight, Anthony Davis, Cooper Flagg, PJ Washington, Najee Marshall. Like the front court is just going to be so strong for the Mavericks. You like that I included Dwight in there? I just had to, right? Like he's just part of the Mavs ethos right now. He's just part of the Mavs ecosystem. Then you have the guard wings: Klay Thompson, Max Christie, Caleb Martin, Jaden Hardy, and then two-way guy Miles Kelly. Got some question marks on that one. Klay Thompson, expecting some big things from him. We'll talk about Klay Thompson slightly, and Isaac will talk about him a little bit later today. And he did an interview with Michael Cooper, and it said a couple of really interesting things about the Mavericks. And I was going to do it today with me and Isaac, but then I saved it because I thought it was just so interesting that I wanted to do it with all three of us. And so Klay Thompson, though, 35 years old, going to be 36 sometime during this season. And we hope that he's going to be the same kind of guy. We hope that he's going to come back and be as solid as he was last year, because he was solid. Maybe the 3-point shooting gets a little bit better with, another year in the offense, maybe more opportunities here and there. The defense stays about where it is. Like if that is fine, then Klay Thompson is solid. Then you have Max Christie, who was really good to start for the Mavericks, and then all of a sudden kind of fell off a little bit. And then you have Caleb Martin. And with Caleb Martin, you have a guy that struggled with his shot, looked really good on defense, but struggled with injuries. Again, coming over another injured guy. And then Jaden Hardy, who the Mavericks shopped and trying to figure out if they could get rid of him because they don't really have a spot for him. He's, I guess, a guard wing. And then Miles Kelly, who's just not going to play a ton because of because he's two-way and because he's got some work to do for sure. Couple question marks there, but you're feeling okay about that if that was one position group. And then the lead guards. This is where everything would make sense if you had Kyrie. Because if D'Angelo Russell would be a really good backup. You'd feel really good about D'Angelo Russell being your backup point guard, as a lead guard. Dante Exum, solid. Like as a third string guy, that would be absolutely solid. You'd feel pretty good about that. Then Brandon Williams. Maybe he's the third string guy even. Like you have multiple options for your third string. You'd feel really good. And then Ryan Nembhard on a two-way. Like you have lead guards if you're only going to play one at a time anyway, because you're probably not going to play these guys at the same time, even though the Mavericks think they're going to play Kyrie and D'Angelo Russell together. We'll see if that ever works. But you're only going to play one of them at a time. And so for someone to say that this Mavs roster is deeply flawed, I would look at this guard and I would look at the guard wings and I would look at the lead guard position spots. Your strongest players are at center, at forward combo, and then your weakest spots are at both the guard spots. That's where I would think it would be deeply flawed. I don't agree that it's deeply flawed. I think it's just fine. It's just going to be okay at those spots. And if you can be okay at those spots, and if the forward combos and the straight centers are straight fire, then you're feeling really good about this team and you're feeling really good about what they can do because you're playing just good enough to win a bunch of games. But if Klay Thompson falls off a little bit, if Max Christie doesn't take a step forward, if Caleb Martin's shot doesn't come around, woof, you're struggling there at that other guard spot. And you're asking Cooper Flagg, PJ Washington, Najee Marshall play down a position a lot more than they need to. And then if D'Angelo Russell comes in and he isn't what we hope he's going to be, he's not good in the pick and roll, doesn't shoot threes well, doesn't find his way in the offense. All those things I don't expect, but if those things do happen, he falls off, then the Mavericks are really going to struggle for the first 4 or 5 months of the season or whatever until Kyrie comes back. And even when Kyrie comes back, we don't know what kind of Kyrie we're going to get. And so if they had Kyrie, he was healthy and you felt good, then you would look at that guard wing position and be like, all right, the Klay Thompson, Christie, Caleb Martin is the weakest spot, but at least you have 3 guys that can all kind of fill a spot, and Cooper Flagg can come in and fill that spot a little bit too. Najee Marshall too, PJ Washington maybe a little too. You'd feel good about having some guys to funnel in afterwards. But if you're someone that thinks the Mavericks roster is deeply flawed, that's where you're looking at. You're not believing in Klay. You're not believing in D'Angelo Russell. You're not believing in the lead guards. And you're thinking, all right, if that's the case, then Anthony Davis not playing center is just going to push all the spacing into a really weird spot. The Mavericks are going to really struggle, and that's what they are. So if you're in the 14% that thought that, I think that's what you think, but I don't agree. I don't agree that the Mavs roster is deeply flawed. I think it's just fine. I think D'Angelo Russell is going to be able to hit threes. I think he's going to be really good in the pick and roll with Anthony Davis. I think Klay Thompson will be just fine and just as good as he was last year. Solid, right? We're not asking for all-star Klay Thompson anymore. We're not asking for go save us in a quarter in a playoff game, Klay Thompson. You're just asking for solid veteran presence, spaces the floor, still demands respect, and isn't a turnstile on defense, and is just solid in that spot. And if you get that, great. That's all you can expect from like a 36-year-old guy in the NBA right now, right? And so that's where they are. If you think the Mavs roster is deeply flawed, that's interesting. If you think the Mavs roster is well built, you believe in all the things I just said. And you believe Kyrie's coming back at a certain point. Or you just decided to lump Kyrie in there even though he's injured. And you're just like, all right, with Kyrie, roster is actually pretty strong. You've got an all-star guard in Kyrie Irving. D'Angelo Russell as a backup, as a wild card, is a great spot. Dante Exum, Brandon Williams, you're not asking as much of those guys at all. And if one of those pops, then all of a sudden you're feeling really good about your guards. And then that allows Klay Thompson, Max Christie, and Caleb Martin, their shooting to not be as big of a weakness because you have Kyrie Irving and D'Angelo Russell. Right now, you just got D'Angelo Russell, you've got Exum and Brandon Williams, and you're like, all right, I don't think that their shooting makes up for the lack of shooting in some of the other spots. Coming up, is D'Angelo Russell enough of a stopgap guard for Kyrie Irving? Should the Mavericks have gone with somebody else? We'll talk about what you guys said, and then we'll talk about the answer to that. We'll talk about that and more. Coming up, Locked On Mavs continues right now. Today's episode of Locked On Mavs brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is almost here. FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with can't miss offers. Go to FanDuel. They got futures. They got all kinds of stuff right now. You can go see what the Cowboys are all up to. Right now, new customers get $5. If your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets. That's big. Sometimes it goes down to like $150. So if this is the time you've been waiting for, like, this is it. Go for it. Run into it. See what is there for you. If we're looking at some Cowboys odds, what would I even have to find for the Cowboys? It's going to be like fun for me to do. They're an 8.5 point underdog against the Eagles in week 1. So like not feeling great. What is their win total looking like right now? Stop. These are so low. Over 5.5 wins is minus 250. Like it's still expected, but that's not super high. Over 5.5 wins. Oh my gosh. So if you feel real confident the Cowboys are going to get more than 6 wins, go check it out at FanDuel. Use the app, download it, visit FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. Place your first $5 bet. FanDuel.com. Please gamble responsibly. Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad. That's what we call our listeners, listening every single day. We appreciate you for checking out the show. We can talk about the Mavs roster. Is it deeply flawed? We got some issues. What do we think about it? You guys, 71% of you said it's fine, depending on health, but 14% said deeply flawed. 14% said well-built, clear advantages. That's the last one we just talked about. Let's get into the next one here. Is D'Angelo Russell enough of a Kyrie stopgap? This is a survey that we gave to everybody. Yes, him, Exum, Brandon Williams, Nembhard are enough. They're enough of a stopgap. 70% of you said that. So another just resounding, everybody agrees with that part. 20% said no, they should have traded assets for somebody better. And 10% said no, they should have signed somebody else cheap. Let's focus on the 10% that said sign someone else cheap. What would that have even looked like? Spencer Dinwiddie went to the Hornets. Could have brought him back. I don't think you're feeling any better about the roster if you bring Dinwiddie back instead of like Exum. 3 guys are still out there that have just kind of been wild cards that I don't really know. What does the league even think of these guys? Russell Westbrook, still out there, was playing for the Nuggets, playing a big role for the Nuggets down the stretch when they were dealing with injuries. And all of a sudden, he's just still out there. And like, maybe the Kings were interested. He's just still out there. We don't know what's going on with Russell Westbrook. He may play in a different country next year and not for the Raptors, like in a different country out there. Malcolm Brogdon, still unsigned. He was with the Wizards last year, has dealt with a ton of injuries, but was 6th man of the year in like, 2021, 22? Was a good, like, solid guard. And then Markelle Fultz, still out there. These are all guys that like Mavericks fans have pined after at certain times to be a backup guard that people have said, well, just bring those guys in. And I don't know about any of them. I kind of like Russell Westbrook would be the ultimate just wild card. Bring him in. What if he fits well with the team? What if he pushes their fast break and the Mavericks get enough stops that all of a sudden their fast break matters a ton and they're like, and they are like the Rockets from last year, and then that's how they catapult themselves into the next level. That would be the one thing, because I don't think Brogdon or Markelle Fultz are giving you enough of an advantage in one specific area that helps push you forward enough. Brogdon makes great decisions, could be a good shooter. Markelle Fultz can get to the basket, but I don't know. And so maybe I just answered my question. But I think the 10% is interesting. You should have signed somebody else cheap. The other options were like Dennis Schroeder. And I don't know that I'm feeling that much better about Dennis Schroeder if he's on this team than I am about D'Angelo Russell. And Schroeder signed for more than Russell did. So that was not really an option. There's like Tyus Jones went to the Magic. I think D'Angelo Russell was the best one they could have gotten signing cheap. I think the Mavericks did the best they could with that spot. The 20% on this survey that said they should have traded assets for somebody better are the ones that I guess want to win right now. And I don't think there's enough players that like move teams where you're like, that was the guy. That was the guy that we should have got, right? Like, who moved teams recently in a trade? Malik Monk may be that guy. Malik Monk may move teams, but I don't expect it to. I don't expect the Kings to make that move and to be desperate enough to trade Malik Monk. But it sounded like they were trying to trade Malik Monk to bring in Dennis Schroeder, and like, I don't know what's going through their mind about that. So maybe that. Cole Anthony made his way to the Bucks. Like, I think I'd rather have D'Angelo Russell than Cole Anthony. And so I don't think there's enough good guards that move teams. Correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm missing somebody. But I don't think that Anthony Simons got traded. Drew Holiday got traded. Anthony Simons would have been interesting as a guy to come in and score. You've got the defense behind him. But again, I don't think he's changing your world so much that you would want to give up assets for him. You want to go out of your way to give up something, and then you just have less to use later. I'm saving any asset I can, which is why I was fine with the Mavericks just stretching and waiving Omax's deal instead of trying to use a second-round pick or something like that to move him. Save all the assets you possibly can for when Cooper Flagg has proven himself. You're going to need them because all of a sudden the window can close really quick. We've seen it. It just did for the Mavericks. Like the window for the Luka Mavericks closed so quick, and the Mavericks decided it. Oof. That was the wrong choice. But you're going to need all those assets for then. So I was fine with that. And so I don't think they should have traded assets for somebody better. And I don't think somebody better moved. I don't think there was like the Kobe White didn't move teams. That was the name we were all thinking about and going after. He didn't move teams. And so would more assets have made him change teams? I don't know. Our guy Quentin Grimes is still out there unsigned. I don't think the Mavs could have traded assets for him either. So is D'Angelo Russell enough of a stopgap replacement? I agree with the 70%. I think he's enough of a stopgap. It's just enough. Again, fine enough. That's words that are being defined. The Mavs are being defined by right now. It's fine enough. That's the spot that they're in. We'll see what happens. Could be good. Depends on health. Kyrie comes back. We'll see. That's where we are with the Mavericks. But coming up, when Kyrie does come back, who should start? We'll also talk about who should start before Kyrie comes back, because you just put D'Angelo Russell in there. And we'll talk about that and more coming up. Locked On Mavs continues.
Dallas is going to get a seat at the table.
All right, we're talking about the Mavs survey that we put out there. You guys answered the call. Appreciate you guys for doing that. And I wanted to deep dive into some of these other ones. Just talk about D'Angelo Russell and if he is the best stopgap replacement. And I think he was. I agree with the 70%. That said he was the best one that you could get out there. Next one I want to get into is who should start with Kyrie, Cooper Flagg, Anthony Davis, and Lively. Because it's interesting that 60% said Klay Thompson. I would agree. I agree that Klay needs to start with that group. 27% said PJ Washington. 10% said Max Christie. There's a little bit left over. It was like 1% said Caleb Martin and 1% said other, and they just named somebody else. But with that starting five, you've got Kyrie, great shooter, playmaker. Cooper Flagg, we're hoping that he's going to be a good playmaker in his own right. Definitely defender, connector piece. Can post up, can do basically everything. Anthony Davis, who can handle the ball face up. He can take a jumper. I'm not sure you want him to take a ton of jumpers, but he can. Lively, great roller, another great connector piece that can get you out of jams. And definitely a great rim roller to the rim and rebounder. Mavericks have rebounders in Cooper Flagg, Anthony Davis, and Lively. So you're feeling really good. What do you need in that group? You need more shooting. Simple as that. You need more shooting at that spot. You need somebody that can come in and space the floor for the rest of those guys. Because Kyrie cannot do it alone. If you put PJ in there, you're getting a good shooter, but you're not getting the gravity that Klay Thompson brings at that spot. You bring in Christie, better shooter, maybe better than PJ, but not last year. You're not getting the gravity they're getting with the Klay Thompson. I need the respect and the gravity so that players are moved away from a Cooper Flagg and Anthony Davis, a Lively. Because I don't know what I'm getting out of Cooper Flagg. He shot 38% from three last year or 40% or whatever last year in college. But that adjustment is big. The three-point line moves back a little bit. The defenses are better in the NBA or different in the NBA. And so we don't know exactly what he's going to be. I can't project that he's going to be a really good three-point shooter. I can project a lot of other things, but I don't know about three-point shooting. That there's struggles for some guys. Anthony Davis has not been a good three-point shooter and has not really been a good jump shooter that much, except for outside of a couple years. He can get going and he can get really hot. And when he gets going, there's just no stopping him because then you respect the jumper. You step up to him and he goes around you and he dunks on your head. Lively, the three-point shot has not been realized yet. Mark Cuban may want it to be. He may want that three-point shot to come around. He may want that to happen. And he says that, and he, told our friends at DLS, he said that the Mavericks season will go as far as Anthony Davis and Lively's three-point shots go. Hold on, I just gotta. Dereck Lively has made 1 3, and it was in the finals. Anthony Davis has shot like under 30% from three since the bubble. If the Mavericks season depends on those guys taking threes, I disagree with him. Maybe their ceiling, maybe they could go to the finals and win the finals if those guys start shooting threes. Because the variance on that would just be insane for it to go off that way. And for all of a sudden, both those guys to turn into Brook Lopez, to turn into Al Horford, and just all of a sudden in their career start taking threes and start making them. So I think it's got to be Klay Thompson that starts with them. I don't think that Anthony Davis and Lively are going to give you the three-point shooting that you really need with those guys. And so you've got to add it. And then in the lineups where you're closing, I think you got to take one of the centers off, move AD up, bring in PJ, Kyrie, Klay, PJ, Cooper Flagg, Anthony Davis. You run with that. Really good decision makers. Guys, not a lot of guys that are going to make mistakes, even Cooper Flagg. And I think you're feeling pretty good about that. If you start PJ, and 27% said start PJ, you got Kyrie, Cooper Flagg, Anthony Davis, Lively. That is a huge lineup. Kyrie at like 6'2", PJ and Cooper Flagg at 6'7", 6'9", AD at 6'10", 6'11", Lively at over 7 foot. Massive, massive lineup. Advantages on defense, advantages on rebounds, advantages on just length and size. Weakness on shooting, weakness on shot creation in a way. The spacing is going to be interesting. I think Jason Kidd is really going to try this. I think he really is. We've heard him say it. We've heard him say we're going to try the Cooper Flagg and PJ Washington combo. And he wants to play AD at the 4 because AD wants to play at the 4. And so you go with that one and you go with the jumbo lineup. And I'm interested to see that one play out. I think against certain teams, I think it could absolutely work. I think against teams that are going to try and get the ball out of the main ball handlers' hands, Mavs could struggle. I think if this defense is good enough, they can rotate good enough, then this lack of spacing is going to do them in. Unless Cooper Flagg and if PJ continues his three-point shooting from last year, and if Cooper Flagg is good again, and the transition from college to the NBA is good, then that spreads the floor enough. But it's interesting. You can do a lot of things with that lineup. You can run PJ as the screener. You can run Cooper Flagg as a screener for AD. You can do all kinds of things with those lineups. And you have size. The Mavericks are going to win rebounding battles this year. Isaac's going to have to eat his words. You can't treat the Mavericks like the 2022 Mavericks anymore because rebounds aren't going to matter for this team. They're going to need to get them is the thing. It's no longer, well, they don't matter. It doesn't matter if they win the rebounding battle. They need to get them. Absolutely do. Huge. We haven't really talked about Dante Exum that much. I was glad that Dante Exum came back. He's solid. He's dealt with some injuries, and I think that's something that you just can't really predict. But it also has been something that's been an issue for him his whole career. Past year for the Mavericks, he only played 20 games. The year before that, he played 55. He was out of the league for the 2 years before that. Played He only played 6 games for Cleveland. Year before that, that's not for injury. He just wasn't getting playing time. 2020 he played 35 games. 2019 played 42. 2018 played 14 games because of injury. 2017 he played 66. And then his rookie year, he played 82, which was huge. And then he missed out on his second year because of an injury. He just dealt with it, but he's just solid he's solid in the spot. You know what he's going to give you. Averaged about 9 points a game last year, shot 43% from 3, 2.8 assists. You know what you're getting from Dante Exum. It's solid. And I think the Mavericks going with a fire and ice combo at guard behind D'Angelo Russell is smart. To go with D'Angelo Russell, who you think you know what you're going to get from him. Been in the NBA for a little while. Solid. Okay. Feeling good. Then you have Brandon Williams. He's the fire. You don't know what... Fire is unpredictable. You don't know where fire is going to go. You don't know how hot fire is going to burn that day. You don't know what color fire is going to be. Color fire is going to be. Is it going to be white hot? Is it going to be blue? You know, what color is it going to be? Then you have Dante Exum. He's the ice. Coming out, you just slide it across the floor. It's chill. Stays like it is. Slowly melts, but you know what to predict there. You know how it's going to melt. You know how fast it's going to, depending on the temperature of the room and what's all set up and all that. And so you're feeling okay about that. And so I think that the approach there is good. Overall, I think this Mavs roster is pretty good and the best that they could have really done. They weren't going to give up a lot of assets, and they didn't have to because not enough guys moved teams, I think, that really moved the needle. And so I think the roster is fine. I think the Mavericks should start Klay Thompson, and we'll talk more about Klay Thompson tomorrow with myself, Isaac, and Slightly. Great stuff all the time from us. Go check it out on we've got the YouTube channel, we got the podcast feeds, all that, and the subtext as well, the text line. Click the link in the description to do that. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.